Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Sandra and as always, I'm here for business. The Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretariat, which would be headquartered in Accra, would be fully operational from January next year. Ghana was last week selected to host the headquarters, which would help coordinate the implementation of the agreement. Trade Minister Alan Tremanti tells Joy Business in an interview the chief executive for the Secretariat will be announced by December this year.
By January 2020, the Secretary General, the key staff would all have been recruited, all the systems, operational systems would have been activated, and latest by March 2020, everything to do with the Secretariat should have been completed. And by latest by mid-2020, actual trading would already have...
But will Ghana also have the right to settle on the CU, or it will still be an AU decision?
Again, the framework agreement of the CFTA has prescribed the selection process for the Secretary General, just as they did for the selection of the host country. So, the beauty about this one is that you have the framework agreement, that's the general framework agreement, which defines all the principles, the guidelines, all the questions you are asking about, the answers are in the framework agreement. But beyond that, to make it operational, there's also the protocol on goods, which has also been negotiated and signed, that deals with rules of origin, tariff concessions, non-tariff barriers, phytosanitary measures. All those things have also been negotiated. So you have a protocol in goods, and again, you have protocol in services. And this is very significant because even in the WTO, we've not been able to negotiate fully the protocol in services. So there's the protocol on goods, there's the protocol on services, and also very interestingly, there's now a protocol on dispute settlement, which means that unlike as is in the case now for ECOWAS, if there's an infringement of any of the provisions, let's say including dumping or any other trade remedies, you can file a dispute.
So stay on that, and Ghana is ready to donate $10 million to the African Union to support the operationalization of the Secretariat. This was after the country, as we know by now, was selected to host the Secretariat for the Continental Free Trade Agreement. So what does it really mean for Ghana, and what do we know about the Continental Free Trade Agreement? Let's take a look at this. And first of all, as you know, the host nation is Ghana, and Ghana actually beat competition from countries like Egypt, Eswatini, which is former Swaziland, and then Ethiopia, Kenya, and Madagascar, as well as Senegal. And it was down to Ghana and Senegal, but Senegal actually stepped down for Ghana to host the Secretariat. When you move on, you can see that there's more to know about. And Ghana is ready to donate $10 million to the African Union to support the operationalization of the Secretariat. And also we understand that an interministerial committee has been set up to work with the African Union on the commission. When we go further, this is actually the first time Ghana is hosting an important Pan-African institution, that is according to President Akufo-Addo. And then also the Secretariat shall enjoy, that's some of the privileges that we stand to enjoy, is that immunity stipulated in the OAU General Conventions on Privileges and Immunities, the Vietnam Convention on Diplomatic Privileges and Immunities, etc. And when we also go on, you realize that the Continental Free Trade Agreement is said to be the world's largest free trade area since the formation of the World Trade Organization. It will cover a market of 1.2 billion people with a combined gross domestic product, that's the GDP of $2.5 trillion actually. So that's what the Continental Free Trade Agreement is about. And we have 54 member states of the African Union that have actually signed up for this agreement. So the mandate, the core mandate of the Secretariat is to actually implement the African Continental Free Trade Agreement Area Agreement, which has since been ratified by 25 member states. So that's what it is. Meanwhile, local manufacturers have been advised to be mindful of their production costs and quality of their goods produced in order to stay competitive under the Continental Free Trade System. Executive Secretary of the Ghana International Trade Commission, Frank Ejekum, said local firms must step up their games to participate effectively.
Continental Free Trade Agreements will bring together 54 African countries with a combined population of more than 1 billion people on a common market. This will make it one of the largest free trade areas since the formation of the World Trade Organization, given Africa's huge population. Ghana was last selected by heads of state and government to host the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Speaking to Joy Business, Executive Secretary of the Ghana International Trade Commission, Frank Ejekum, urged local producers to improve their competitiveness.
Make sure that the quality of your product is comparable to that on the international market. And this has been a basic problem with industries, not only in Ghana, but with all developing countries, so-called. They have a problem in terms of the quality of their products, or the packaging of their products. We also need to take care of the workforce and manpower that go into the production levels that we want, and also take care of the economics and the production inputs, so that they are able to produce at a level that really it makes them competitive. Now that we have Africa free trade, continental free trade coming in, it means that we need to be able to compete at a very high level.
He also noted local producers must not just focus on the African market, but foreign ones as well.
The market really is not only in Africa, and as much as we should trade in Africa, and everybody knows that if we are able to make our standpoint in Africa, that's almost half of the way gone. But we're not looking at Africa, we are looking at beyond Africa, Asia, Europe, wherever, so that our products also become household names, like German products, American products, our Chinese. We should be able to, and I'm sure that should be the target of any manufacturing industry in Ghana.
For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklu.
All right, Apia Domako is West Africa Regional Director for CARTS International, a research and advocacy policy think tank, and he's here for more on the African Free Trade Agreement. And first of all, what do you make of the $10 million that Ghana is actually donating towards the Secretariat? Is that enough? And where are we getting the money from? And how do we stand to benefit from that?
I think Ghana giving $10 million is enough in respect to the size of our GDP, but I think in the end, Ghana is going to get its returns in millionfold.
How?
One, people are coming to work here at the Secretariat. They'll be paid in cedis or in dollars. They'll pay taxes to the state. They're going to spend. And number two, there's going to be a lot of event conferences. And let me tell you one thing. Ethiopian Airline, for example, gets close to $1 billion from airline tickets for those going to African Union meeting. All
right, so I think we have a lot to benefit. But what do you make of concerns that this is another agreement that is going to make Ghana or Africa a dumping ground for substandard goods?
I don't think it's going to make Ghana a dumping, because there's a protocol on goods and services. So if the goods that you are producing into the market doesn't meet the standard, that good will not be allowed into the country, number one. And number two, because it's going to bring about duty-free, quota-free, if your good doesn't meet standard, nobody's going to buy, so you better stop producing it. And number three, also, it's also going to make Ghanaian businesses competitive, because you don't have to worry about shipping your goods to Europe by paying so much for air freight. But here you put your goods on the truck from here to Aflao to Niger, and then you are done and you get your money overnight.
Very interesting. But we've had instances also where we've seen locals fronting for foreign businesses, and that is what is happening in the retail market as we speak now, and the issue is escalating. So do you see this continental free trade, and hiding under the guise of continental free trade agreements, the locals will start fronting for foreign businesses, Chinese businesses, European businesses? Do you fear that that could happen?
I fear that can happen, but under the free trade agreement, there is what we call rules of origin. So if you are bringing a goods from China and you are coming to sell the good in Ghana, it doesn't qualify under the free trade. And so taxes have to be applied on that goods. It will only be goods that are coming from Africa. Even if goods are coming from South Africa, and then the raw materials are all sourced from, let's say, Europe, the rules of origin would apply.
But we've also seen relabeling of products. So why do we?
So this is not the first time we're having a free trade in the world. And so there's a lot of lessons that African Union has put in place to ensure that people do not abuse this. And now, government is saying that they are going to strengthen their customs and SI preventive services for them to be able to do their work to prevent people from abusing the free trade area.
All right, quickly before we go, I mean, terror attack, the continent has become prone to terror attacks. Do you see free movements of persons and goods as a way of, I mean, putting us in more danger when it comes to terror attacks?
I think we shouldn't be so scared about that because one, if your borders are well patrolled, you'll be able to restrict people from coming in to do evil things.
All right, Mr. Appiah-Dumaku, thank you so much for joining us. I will still have more business news after 8 p.m. and we'll be talking about a lot when I come back after 8 p.m. If you're just joining us, just join News Prime. My name is Sandra and I'm back with more business news. Inflation for the month of June has been pegged at 9.1% as compared with 9.4% recorded in May 2019. The Upper West, Bonahafo, Western and Ashanti regions recorded the highest levels of inflation. Deputy Government Statistician Araba Forson has been explaining the main price drivers of food and non-food inflation in this report.
Deputy Statistician, the main price drivers for the non-food inflation rates were clothing and footwear, which recorded 15.2%. Recreation and culture was 15%. Furnishing, household equipment and routine maintenance went for 14.6%.
Now we also look at the non-food. Yeah, we look at the non-food for Upper West region, and we see that for the non-food for Upper West region, two items stand out, and these are transport and miscellaneous goods and services. Transport recorded 19.1%. whilst the miscellaneous goods and services recorded 15.1%. And the lowest was alcoholic beverages, tobacco, and narcotics.
Upper West region recorded the highest general inflation of 11.11%, followed by the Bonahafo region, while the Upper East region recorded the lowest year-on-year inflation rate of 8.3%. Meanwhile, Araba Forson has been speaking to Joy Business about preparations ahead of the 2020 census.
Population and housing census is in the preparatory stage. The questionnaires have been designed, and as you are aware, we are planning to do an electronic census. So we are using tablets for data collection, and we are also automating most of our activities. For example, recruitment, even our training, and the way we send our data from the field to the head office. Okay. So we are in a preparatory stage now. We've just completed the trial census.
Several factors contributed to the fall in the rate of inflation in June 2019. The major ones include favorable weather patterns and conditions, government policy on planting for food and jobs, exchange rate stability beginning of the harvest season, and others. In any given month, the figure is determined by the balance between the upward and downward price movement of the range of goods included in taxes.
In other news tonight, government through the Ministry of Energy is expected to soon complete work on the transformation of the existing gas master plan into an act to regulate the industry. The new law will provide enabling environments for investors as well as helping governments meet the current trends in gas industry. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia disclosed this at the ongoing Ghana International Petroleum Conference in Accra.
10 years after oil and gas production in Ghana, the country is yet to boast of a standard law for regulating the gas market. As part of measures to develop an exclusive policy on the sector, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia says the current gas master plan is being enhanced into law to regulate the sector. Dr. Bawumia, who was speaking at this year's Ghana International Petroleum Conference, added the new law will provide the enabling environment for investors as well as help governments in catching up with modern trends in the gas industry.
Minister of Energy would conclude the process of realignment and commence the process of legislative consolidation of the Gas Master Plan into a Gas Act. This is an important requirement for development of Ghana into a petrochemical hub in the sub-region. Government recognizes that there are some regulatory challenges that must be addressed to provide regulatory certainty and predictability in the downstream natural gas market. There is nothing that really encourages investment by the private sector than regulatory certainty.
Dr. Bawumia also hinted of a master plan for petroleum transportation currently under study, after which it will be implemented. He believes this will solve the many challenges in transporting petroleum products in the country.
Actually, as a matter of fact, this was one of the subjects for our deliberations at the economic management team just yesterday. This will facilitate the development of an alternative transportation infrastructure for petroleum products such as railway lines, pipelines, and river barges to major demand centers across the country. This infrastructure development will also link Ghana with our sub-regional markets and further deepen our regional integration agenda, as well as fulfill the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministerial Committee working on this master plan has finalized its work.
As part of activities at the conference, stakeholders will be deliberating on the deregulation of petroleum industry in Africa. Ebenezer Sabatis report for Joy Business.
Now, for the ones in love and those looking forward to tie the knot soon, this is for you. Now listen, this is because the annual Joy Beauty and Bridal Fair kickstarts tomorrow, July 11 at the Accra International Conference Center. Think of beauty, bridal, and I promise you a one-stop shop for everything bridal and beauty at mouth-watering prices. The fair, which will run from tomorrow, July 11 to 14, will be headlined by actor Ajete Anang and his wife Elom, who will be renewing their vows after 12 years of marriage. There will also be lots of activities, including marriage seminars, fashion show, and a lot more. Certainly, you don't want to miss out on this year's Joy Beauty and Bridal Fair from tomorrow, again, 11th of July to 4th at the Accra International Conference Center from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Pictures are nice. I feel like getting married now. Back to the commodity market now, and crude oil actually sold at $66.63 a barrel. Let's check how trading fared today in commodity news. Thanks so much for joining me on Business with me, Sandra. And I'm finished. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Have a great evening.